During a patrol mission on the planet Lothal, Darth Vader felt something unusual, a strange ripple in the Force, as if ancient energies had recently been stirred. The heavy sky covered forgotten ruins of a Jedi temple, destroyed years earlier. But there, beneath the ground, something pulsed. Guided by this call, Vader searched through buried corridors, facing ancient traps left by the old masters, hidden light spears, sudden collapses, and, at one point, an ethereal creature made of pure Force energy that tried to stop him. With methodical brutality, he destroyed the obstacles one by one until he found a sealed chamber. At its center, a stone mirror suspended in the void glowed in pale blue. It was the portal. The entrance to the world between worlds enveloped him without warning. Immediately, Vader was overwhelmed by a whirlwind of visions. Ahsoka's voice echoed among whispers, calling him by his true name. Screams cut through the empty air, interwoven with memories of Padme in her final moments, and glimpses of Luke, pleading for a father he barely knew. The image of young and furious Leia saying, "You disgust me," struck like a blade, and his old master Obi-Wan, disappointed in the former Anakin, made the Sith hesitate. He saw himself as a child in Tatooine, then a warrior in Geonosis, then the charred monster on Mustafar. Everything was brightness and darkness mixed, as if he were being spat in and out of existence itself. At last, he saw himself, young, lying in a bed, and hurled himself toward that image. Lord Vader ended up crossing the paths of pure energy that seemed to vibrate in response to his pain. The fall ended suddenly. Vader awoke, gasping, but there was no metallic sound. His body was different. There was no weight of armor, no rigidity of prosthetics. He felt sweat on his skin, muscles still young, heart beating strong. He was back in his body as Anakin Skywalker, shortly before the Battle of Coruscant. Looking around, he recognized the apartment bedroom he shared with Padme. The morning sun entered softly through the windows, and the city bustled below. Everything seemed real. But the shock was so great that he remained motionless, trying to process the impossible. He had returned. His first impulse was to think it was an illusion created by the Force, perhaps a trap. But when he looked to the side and saw Padme, sleeping, as alive as he remembered, the world broke inside him. She opened her eyes slowly and smiled, surprised to see him awake earlier than usual. "Are you okay?" she asked tenderly. Anakin didn't answer immediately. He sat on the bed, brought his hands to his face, trembling. "Is this real?" he murmured, voice breaking. "You. Is it really you?" She approached slowly, touching his arm. "You had another nightmare, didn't you?" "No, it's not just a nightmare," he said, looking at her as if she were a mirage. "I lost you. I destroyed everything." Padme frowned, concerned, but her voice remained sweet. "You're here, with me. Nothing happened." He pulled her into a tight hug, silent tears streaming from his eyes. He felt her scent, the warmth of her skin, the gentle pulse beneath his fingers. It was different from any memory. It was present, real, and for that, unbearably beautiful. She, confused, only returned the hug, telling him to breathe deeply. He remained there, in silence, for long minutes. When he finally got up, Anakin looked out the window with renewed eyes. Lothal, the armor, the screams, everything seemed distant, like an echo from another world. Still, the images of the future were alive inside him. Palpatine, the young Padawans dead, the mask of Vader. There was no doubt that all that would happen, if he merely followed his previous path. But now he had a chance to prevent it all from happening. He clenched his fists, swearing to himself, "This time I won't fail her." In the days that followed, Anakin tried hard to act naturally. The Jedi suspected nothing, but Obi-Wan was the first to notice his more introspective behavior. "You're different," he commented during a training. "More calm." Anakin smiled sincerely for the first time in a long while. Deep down, though, he knew the calm was only the surface. He was silent, but deep down, he was very happy to be with his master Obi-Wan again. even though at every moment he recalled the weight he carried. Avoiding Palpatine became his first goal. He declined invitations, made up excuses, distanced himself from Senate commitments. The Chancellor, as expected, found it strange, but didn't force the approach immediately. Anakin knew the moment he would be lured into the trap was near. The old master of deception was never inactive for long. Meanwhile, Anakin began observing his fellow Jedi more attentively. He saw in them not only Order companions, but potential martyrs, faces that would perish if he didn't intervene. Padme, in turn, perceived something deeper. Instead of the impulsive and divided husband, she now saw a more present, more affectionate man. He spoke little about what he felt, but his eyes said everything. At night, when she slept, he remained awake, trying to remember details. How Palpatine had manipulated the Council, how the siege on Coruscant would unfold, how the clones would be turned into instruments of betrayal. He mapped everything. He knew he couldn't act openly, but time, for now, was on his side. One morning, while meditating in secret, he had a vision. He saw Palpatine himself, wrapped in shadows, speaking to the Council, smiling, planting lies. But now the image fractured. Instead of the dark future he knew, the Force seemed to vibrate, uncertain. It was the confirmation he needed. Time had changed. What he did now could in fact alter the course of everything. Inspired, he began planning a new kind of betrayal. Not against the Jedi, but against the very Sith Lord who had shaped his former fate. That night, lying beside Padme, Anakin couldn't sleep. The moonlight bathed the room gently, and she slept peacefully. He touched her belly, imagining the children that had not yet been born. Luke. Leia. There was still hope. There was time. The nights beside Padme became the refuge for his exhausted spirit. Often, lying at her side, he stared at the ceiling, struggling with the urge to tell her everything. But the risk was too great. It was on a sweltering afternoon that Anakin received a new invitation from the Chancellor, more direct, more urgent. The message said it was important, a revelation that only he deserved. Anakin hesitated. He knew this was the moment when, originally, Palpatine would begin to lure him with promises of the dark side, salvation for Padme, and absolute power. For a moment, he considered telling the Jedi Council everything right then, but he stepped back. There was something more powerful in mind. He accepted the invitation, but not without first planning his next move with precision. And yes, he carefully planned every step ahead, for he didn't want to make another mistake. That night, he put on his night robes, kissed Padme on the forehead, and simply said, "I need to face a shadow." Upon entering the Chancellor's chambers, Anakin felt the weight of history on the verge of being rewritten. The place was silent, somber, and Palpatine waited, seated in his swivel chair, hands folded in his lap. The dialogue began like a repeated memory. Compliments, vague promises, enigmatic smiles. But at the moment the Chancellor began to speak about the hypocrisy of the Jedi and the real power hidden in the dark side, Anakin raised his hand and interrupted him. "I already know everything," he said firmly. "You are a Sith Lord. The Dark Master who caused the war, manipulated both sides, plunged the galaxy into chaos and blah blah blah." Palpatine tried to disguise it. He smiled, leaned forward, and said with irony, "And if I were, what would you do, Anakin?" The young Jedi stared at him, his gaze fixed, filled with something even Vader had rarely shown, contempt. He then replied calmly, "If you were, I would follow you. I'd become a Sith, as long as you granted me unlimited powers and a new name. A worthy name." Palpatine, now standing, approached as if welcoming a disciple. "And what name would you choose, my young apprentice?" Anakin then said, with restrained sarcasm. "Darth Vader." Palpatine's reaction was that of a satisfied master. He raised his arms, let his aura of dark power flow, and declared that he was ready to teach Anakin everything. The promises began: mastery over death, salvation for Padme, an eternal throne, and, of course, unlimited power. But Anakin wanted proof that the Sith was truly the most powerful, and so Palpatine displayed part of his power, distorting the shadows around them with the Force, and launching death lightning toward the ceiling of the Chancellor's tower. But when he stepped closer, Anakin turned his face to the wall and spoke out loud, as if talking to someone invisible. "You heard everything? Silence lasted only a second. Then came metallic sounds and shattering glass. The windows exploded. From all sides, Jedi Masters sprang into action. Mace Windu led, his saber lit in flaming purple, followed by Plo Koon, Kai Adi Mundi, Master Yoda, and Obi-Wan. Clones from the 501st and the Temple Guard accompanied them, surrounding the place from every angle. Palpatine recoiled, his expression twisting with rage. His voice roared like thunder as he unleashed a burst of Force lightning, killing 3 clones before the Jedi sabers absorbed the remaining energy. He leaped, igniting his red saber with an animalistic scream. But the Masters were prepared. The duel that followed was brutal and choreographed with Jedi precision. Mace blocked the first strike. Yoda parried the second with an elegant spin. Plo Koon leaped and struck the Sith's flank, while Kai Adi Mundi pressed him with rapid thrusts. Obi-Wan finally intercepted a lateral blow that would have taken a clone's life. The combat lasted less than 2 minutes. The strategy was clear. Surround, contain, neutralize. Palpatine tried to escape, to cast energy bolts and mental manipulations, but he was at a disadvantage for the first time in decades. He fell to his knees, his saber ripped from his hand by a move from Mace. The Sith's breathing was ragged, his gaze filled with fury and denial. "You don't understand. I was the future. I was order." Yoda approached calmly and replied, "A shadow you were. Light, now, returns." With a gesture, the Masters sealed Palpatine's fate. He was taken into custody, unconscious, exhausted, and defeated. The clones exchanged glances, speechless. They had never witnessed such unity among the Jedi Masters. At the center of the hall, Anakin remained silent as if still unsure whether he had truly won, or merely delayed the inevitable. The next morning, the Senate awoke to the news of the Chancellor's arrest. An uproar took over Coruscant. Holograms showed Palpatine's fallen face and the recordings of the conversation transmitted to the Council. The truth had been exposed, not only to the Jedi but to the entire galaxy. The leaders of the Senate tried to bury the scandal, but they couldn't. Padme, among the senators, maintained a firm posture. At the Jedi Temple, Anakin was summoned by the Council. Many looked at him with suspicion, others with gratitude. He did not defend himself or boast. He only said, "I did what needed to be done." Yoda looked at him with tired eyes, and for the first time in a long while, seemed to trust. Obi-Wan embraced him without saying a word. The days that followed were uncertain. The war still raged outside, but the heart of the dark side had been struck at its core. And amid the chaos to come, a seed of hope and redemption had been planted. That night, Anakin returned to Padme's arms. They sat on the apartment balcony, watching ships cut through the sky. He held her hand in silence. The Force felt lighter, less turbulent. There were still wars, wounds, and losses ahead, but there was also choice. There was love, and this time, there was time. Vader was no longer a shadow. He was only an echo that chose to change the end of the story.